Hey y'all, what is up? Keasbey here. So today I'm going to be talking about a newer-ish addition to the Floowandereeze deck, Harpie Harpist. But before we get into that, don't forget to drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you're so inclined, grab yourself a playmat using the link in the description. It really helps us out. So let's talk about Harpie Harpist and what she's doing here. She's a level 4 Wind Wing Beast with 1700 attack and 600 defense and the following effect. As long as she is on the field or the graveyard, her name is treated as Harpy Lady. Alright. When she's normal summoned, boom, synergy already. You can target one winged beast you control and one face-up monster your opponent controls and bounce them both back to the hand. Lastly, if she's in the graveyard because she was sent there this turn, you can add a level 4 winged beast with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. So first, let's talk about the third and first effects, since they're the most clean cut. The third effect basically reads, add barrier statue to hand, unless you're playing some other tech cards that fit the bill. The fact that it specifically adds a level 4 and not a level 4 lower does greatly limit the search, but it isn't useless. We'll talk about that later when this tends to come into play. So let's talk about her main effect, the bounce. Just to refresh, on normal summon, you can target another winged beast you control and a face-up monster your opponent controls and bounce them back to the hand. A quick clarification, this does work on extra deck monsters, they will just bounce them back to the extra deck. So first, if we use this effect to bounce one of our level 1 Flaunders, it will be banished, since their banished condition supersedes them returning to the hand from Harpist. This does have some utility in a basic combo I'll outline later, but in short, it can create chain blocks for other small birds to resolve. There's an issue with this though, in that the effect is more or less dead turn 1 if you went first, because to resolve, your opponent needs to have a monster on field. There's some rare corner cases in which your opponent may have used Gamma on D-Shifter, in which case you can use the chain block turn 1, but I wouldn't take those into account as it's few and far between when it happens. If Gamma does become more of a mainstay, as it's been in the past though, this will become much more useful, since bouncing back Gamma and leaving Driver on the field doesn't give your opponent more Gamma activations. But now, let's talk about the positives of this effect. First, it's a non-destruction, albeit targeted, monster out. This has some good utility in matchups like Despia, in which their fusion monsters have effects in Grave or leaving the field. While Mirror Jade does leave the field, because it goes back to the extra deck face down, it doesn't actually activate. The other cool utility of this effect is that you can bounce an M-Pen as another means of looping her. Again, I'm a big fan of running one M-Pen and continually looping her on and off the field, so Harpist is welcome in helping with that. She also allows you more Ryza utility. I personally always try to bounce Ryza back to my hand to keep it in rotation unless I 100% know I have game on board. However, via Harpist, who is worth mentioning can be summoned off Dreaming Town, we can actually use Ryza fully offensively, then via Harpist, bounce him back to hand to summon later on. Now, I mentioned creating chain blocks with Harpist. Let's go through the basic combo in which we'd be doing this. As always, we aren't going to be factoring in opponent interruptions, and this is just the simplest version of how you can do this. Given our opponent has a target we want to hit with Harpist, we just need Map and Rabina. First, let's activate Map. Then we are going to activate Map's effect, revealing Rabina. We're going to go ahead and banish an Eaglin here. Map resolves, and we will summon the Rabina. Rabina's effect is going to trigger as Chainlink 1, and our banished Eaglin will trigger as Chainlink 2. Eaglin's going to come back to our hand. And now for Rabina, we are going to search for Harpist. On resolution of Rabina's effect, we're going to normal summon the Harpist. Activate the effect of Harpist. We're going to target Rabina and whatever we want to bounce from our opponent's field. So now Rabina will be banished instead of returning to hand as per her condition. Let's use our game mechanic normal summon now for Eaglin. Eaglin's going to trigger his Chainlink 1, Rabina will trigger his Chainlink 2. We're going to get the Rabina back to hand for follow-up on our opponent's turn, and with Eaglin we are going to grab M-Pen. Then on resolution, we will tribute summon M-Pen using Eaglin and Harpist. So the only issue here is we don't have a chain block for M-Pen, but at a minimum we have 4 additional cards in hand that were not part of this combo, plus a live map, M-Pen, and Rabina for follow-up with Eaglin to chain block. But again, we're assuming no interruptions, so let's grab Dreaming Town. We'll set that, and during the end phase, now we can grab Barrier Statue via the effect of Harpist. Not too bad. So, a few things to consider about this line. First, it does play entirely under Ash until we get to M-Pen, provided that we're doing this fresh. Though a gold sarcophagus will solve this issue entirely by adding another chain block. But assuming we don't have that, if our opponent does have Ash, M-Pen will most likely be hit with it, and we won't have Dreaming Town access unless we hard draw it. Not the worst position to be in, as M-Pen can do some heavy lifting herself, and we will have map, but a lot of the better decks out there can threaten a lone M-Pen without committing a normal summon. But once again, I do have to mention this combo happens off of 2 cards, so going second, we will have 4 additional cards of utility. The next thing I want to mention is that this combo does lose to targeted negates, since those can't be chain blocked. And lastly, depending on the mode of negation, while we do chain block to get our birds to activate, be ready to alter this combo on the fly if A bird returning to hand gets negated along the way, or B, Harpist is negated. Harpist being negated isn't the worst case scenario, however, as you will still have the Eaglin in hand, so then you can make an attempt at M-Pen, but you will still lose to targeted negates from here and not have the chain block for Eaglin. Harpist effect also allows for some fun plays with wins, letting you bounce back M-Pen to resummon her again later in the turn. Again, nothing on M-Pen is once per turn. Or using Winds to enable the Summon of Ryza, then using Harpist to bounce him back to hand. Again, if you summon Ryza enabled by Winds, he cannot be bounced back to your hand with his own effect. So she has some good utility, but in fairness to presenting a balanced take on the card, it's utility that doesn't always come into play. Something else worth mentioning as well is she can protect Barrier Statue if summoned off a small Flounder on your opponent's turn without having to potentially play into Ash if you don't have a chain block for Eaglin's Search. The example here would be having Map and Statue on field with Rabina in hand and a banished Eaglin. If you summon Rabina, you can chain block her with Eaglin, but Eaglin won't have another bird to block him for grabbing Ryza. But instead, you can use Rabina blocked by Eaglin to grab Harpist, then use her to bounce the Rabina and whatever is threatening statue, then have Eaglin in hand with Rabina as a chain block for your own turn, and enough material on field to tribute summon M-Pen without playing into an Ash Blossom. Something massive to mention regarding her effect to bounce, though, is that it can miss timing if you are summoning her as part of a chain involving Dreaming Town. If Dreaming Town is not Chain Link 1, she will be summoned while another chain is resolving, and because she is a when effect, not an if, you will not be able to activate her effect. This is not an issue if Dreaming Town is Chain Link 1, as her summon will be the last thing to happen on the chain, allowing her to trigger, but do not summon her with Dreaming Town anywhere past Chain Link 1. The last thing I want to highlight is how Harpie Harpist interacts with Harpie's Featherstorm. So let's do a quick review of Featherstorm. If you control a Winged Beast, you can blanket negate all monster activated effects from your opponent for the turn. That's everything on field when it's activated, anything that ends up on the field during the turn, hand traps, grave effects, everything. Just a note, Storm does not affect continuous effects, it is only activated effects. Then, if it's destroyed, you can search out Harpie's Feather Duster. Now, The relevant part to Harpist is that if you control a Harpie monster, you can play this card from your hand. I know the first impulse to this is, okay, if I go first, I can use this to block out any monster hand traps from my opponent. But let's consider what you need as a follow-up to that. So going first, we have a 5-card hand. 1 card is Harpist, 1 card is Featherstorm. Harpist is a 1-of that is searchable, but you need to have a combo going to do so. And if you've started a combo going first and searched Harpist, you're probably well past needing to worry about hand traps. Featherstorm is a 3-of, but it isn't searchable. Next, we need map to double summon or map access, then we also need a small bird. So that's a 4-card combo that you need to effectively use Featherstorm from hand going first. The other potential uses, and this requires the same setup, but you will have 1 additional card because you're going second, is using Featherstorm like a Dark Ruler No More. The issue here becomes, aside from the highlighted above, Featherstorm, unlike Dark Ruler No More, can be responded to with something like a Barone or Dragoon. And so far as if you end with Harpist on field and didn't use Featherstorm, there's not really much reason not to set the Featherstorm. Yes, it becomes vulnerable to back row removal, but most likely if you've gotten that far in the combo, you had map and map would have already eaten any quick play back row removal. And unless your opponent is playing Night Beam, you can always chain a Featherstorm or just shotgun it at the beginning of the turn if Night Beam is a concern. Plus, if it's destroyed, even if you chain it, you get to use the effect for Feather Duster Search, which is pretty cool. All this isn't to say Featherstorm is bad, it's more to say don't main deck Featherstorm with the expectation that Harpist will make it a solid option if you go second, or as a means of protecting yourself from hand traps if you go first, as it's better odds that it won't play out that way. So that's been my thoughts so far on Harpie Harpist. I'm still doing more testing with her, and there's been both games where she's won me games. The morning of scripting this video, I did the above mentioned chain block combo and bounced back a Masquerade Dragon so that I wouldn't burn myself out of the game. But there's also been games where she could have been really any other card and it would not really have made a difference. If you can pick one up easily, I do suggest trying her out for yourself though, if for no other reason but to learn some new lines for Floowandereeze. As always, if you learned something, don't forget to drop this video a like, check out the link in the description if you'd like to grab a playmat, and subscribe to the channel for even more. And I'll catch you all later.